and welcome to the Doofcast, the official variety podcast of doofmedia.com. My name is Scott Daly, and I am one of your hosts, and I'm joined, as always, by my co-host. Say hello, co-host.
I'm Matt, and I'm just passing through.
Jesus. Here we go again. This week on the show, it is time for another one of our patron-produced episodes. Folks who pledge to us at the Doof Warrior level or above on Patreon, that's patreon.com/doofmedia, get to select a movie or a short story for us to do an episode of this podcast on. This week, Patron DDev, who's actually also one of our moderators, so thank you, DDev, for not only making us watch this movie and supporting us financially, but helping our Discord. Thanks, DDev. Anyway, DDev asked us to take a look at the 2004 sequel to the smash hit Pitch Black. That's in quotes, by the way.
Yes,
you can't see me, but I put it in quotes. We're going to be talking all about the Chronicles of Riddick.
Yeah, and today we have with us to lend his extensive Riddick-verse expertise, my brother Daniel Freeman. Daniel, are you going to kill the monsters?
I am the monster.
Oh my god, folks. It is going to be a full spoilers discussion of the movie The Chronicles of Riddick, and let's be honest here, Pitch Black as well. Although I don't know how you spoil Pitch Black. I don't think it's possible. So we're going to be talking all about this movie, and then we're going to cap off the show. I just wanted to talk to you, Matt, and you too, Daniel, I guess, because you're here. Hi. About kind of the concept of feedback to serialized storytelling. Matt and I kind of got in a conversation about this today, and like I do with everything else I do, if I think a conversation is going well, I'm like, well, shit, we got to record this and monetize it. So that's what we're doing.
It's the American way.
We're gonna be talking, yeah, exactly. So we're talking about feedback and critique of works that are being produced serially. It's a topic that I think is both near and dear to Matt and I's heart, because we talked about a web serial as it was being written for 2.5 years, but we've also, just observed a lot of content these days is released in a serialized nature, and it's a little bit different than your standard kind of television series type stuff.
Yeah, and I think people aren't thinking about the differences when they are engaging in criticism, but we'll get to that.
Yes, we will. But for now, let's jump into our main segment and let's talk all about the Chronicles of Riddick.
They are a plague that now sweeps through the worlds of man, leaving behind a trail of dead planets and towering icons, monuments to their unholy crusade.
All those poets on all those worlds who spoke of war as such an unsightly thing, they never stood here.
Never fails to inspire, does it? Each time a world falls.
The Necromongers, a dark army that will convert or kill every last human life, unless they can be stopped. But sometimes, the only way to stop evil is not with good. You must confront it with another kind of evil.
Who the hell are you?
Matt, what is this movie about?
The wanted criminal, Richard Bruno Riddick, Vin Diesel, arrives on a planet called Helion Prime and finds himself up against an invading empire called the Necromongers, an army that plans to convert or kill all humans in the universe. Written and directed by David Toy.
Who also directed Pitch Black and wrote, I believe. I'm not sure. I think he wrote and directed Pitch Black. So David Twohy's really, really big in on this Riddick universe.
Yeah.
I think the first thing we have to do is comment on Richard Bruno Riddick.
That's not canon. His name is Riddick. That's my headcanon, and I disagree.
His name is Dick Riddick.
What's funny is I've always known his name was Richard B. Riddick. I didn't know it was Bruno until today.
How did you know his name? Why am I asking? Of course you know.
Yeah.
The thing about this movie, as we will get into shortly, is that both you and Daniel really love this character, right?
Yeah, that's accurate.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's actually like I noticed this while watching it that you know how you can like watch a movie with a friend and then they're like really annoyingly will like say all of the lines as the movie happens because they have the entire movie memorized. And I realized that was me about this movie, and I didn't actually know that was true about me about this movie. But I haven't seen this movie in 8 years, and I still know every single line of this movie. So
Yeah.
Wow.
that's not much.
We watched this movie a lot. I think maybe that would be a place to start, is that like, and I talked about this on a relatively recent podcast, that like the space adventure sci-fi landscape of the early 2000s was a desolate wasteland. We had garbage like the 2001 Tim Burton Planet of the Apes. We had Mission to Mars and Red Planet, which were both bad.
My favorite, Wing Commander.
Yeah.
Wing Commander, which got an honorable mention last time. Like, it wasn't until the latter half of the 2000s that we started to get stuff like Sunshine, which isn't really a fun romp in itself. And I don't know what it was. It was just like there's this massive, complete like nobody wanted to play in the space of Star Wars. Maybe.
I mean, I remember us talking about this when in the early 2000s, and just like both of us being sad that there weren't any good sci-fi movies that were coming out. And I think we had settled on no one thought there was money in it or something. Like maybe was there like a large expensive flop other than this movie around that era?
Well, there probably was. My first thought is that Star Trek was probably always like struggling to make money. But the thing is, Star Trek is very boring. And I don't know. I feel like just nobody knew how to do it is a better. And so like when this came along, this was actually a breath of fresh air. Regardless of how it may or may not hold up.
You are qualifying your opinion so much, and I love it.
I'm just going to jump in and say that this movie's perfect, and I will defend it to the death. So I look forward to this conversation.
Well,
all right, so we'll do Daniel last because he has this movie is perfect opinion. Matt, I want to know, you've talked about how you've seen this movie many, many times, and you loved it the first time you saw it, and you loved it many times. What did this most recent rewatch do for you, Matt?
Oh, this most recent rewatch was quite depressing, because I was just like, oh, this is just very silly, and like self-indulgent in a number of ways that I can no longer accept as being good. Now, I will say that by the end of the movie, I was like, I was into the story. It wasn't like I was like, oh, this is actually a piece of crap. It was more like I was like, this is just a silly movie. And then I sort of tried to watch it as like wacky camp, and it sort of worked better once I switched my brain into that mode. That's not how I watched it when I was younger. I just unironically liked it when I was younger. So
yeah, I mean, I think this is a bad movie. I really do. I think it's silly and absurd, and I don't think it's structured or paced very well at all. I think it's very weird that like the main plot line is these necromongers, but 75% of the movie takes place on the crematorium where Riddick is trying to escape, which I think is actually the better movie. If like they just made a small Pitch Black-esque movie where Riddick is just on another place trying to get off of it, because that's where the character works the most.
Yes.
But then they attached this lore and this like last remaining survivor of an entire species and destined savior of the universe and these necromongers. It's just very silly. But here's the deal. I don't think this is a good movie. I still had fun with it for the exact reasons you were talking about, Matt, that it is campy, it is silly, and the most delightful thing about it is nobody in this movie is taking it seriously except for Vin Diesel, which is like the best. It's the best.
Yeah.
That's the best Vin Diesel, is when he is the only one that is super serious about this. Because like, look at what Tandy Newton and Carl Urban are doing in this movie. They're ridiculous.
Yeah.
They're absurd. Like they're just like these like these two people like conspiring against the Lord Marshal behind his back and going over the top and absurd with it. And that part works.
It's so good.
They're doing Macbeth, and
Yeah.
like they're so. I think that Twohy, I don't know how to say his name. I feel like he just like got so much money, and he was like, I just have to put every idea I've ever had into this movie. We're gonna have space Macbeth. We're gonna have space Prison Break. We're gonna have space like Visigoths. We're gonna have a planet that's fire on one side, and yet the atmosphere is still breathable somehow. just every science fit like that's probably the level on which I actually do just think the movie is fun, is that it's just a wild ride of like rapidly going through different fun science fiction set pieces. I think we're a bit spoiled now because we have like the Avengers Cosmos, like Guardians of the Galaxy and stuff like that, but like it's I think it is just fun, actually. Like a lot of, I think that you're right that the crematoria section probably could have just been a movie, and we could have forgotten about the necromongers, and it would have been better.
No.
But
I mean, I think it would have made it as just like another kind of like ho-hum, not bad, but not particularly good film that Pitch Black was. Which, I mean, I think maybe would have been a more enjoyable thing to watch for me. But I do kind of like the idea of this movie on paper is so absurd. And I love that. Like the fact that this movie was made doesn't make any sense to me. Why $105 million for Vin Diesel's like D&D session that he made after he got obsessed with his character?
It's because he's amazingly charismatic and completely sells the character, and it's amazing.
I also wanted to definitely have a segment of this podcast where we just talk about his chess development between Pitch Black and Chronicles of Riddick, because I remember like in Pitch Black he's just kind of like a rangy, like pretty fit guy. In this movie he's just jacked, and I'm like, what happened between these two movies?
Stardom.
Pressure.
He was on an ice world and getting ripped for.
There's so many great shots that are basically just him flexing.
Yeah.
Yes.
I actually had a sticky note on talking about that as well. I'm not even joking.
Let's get to Daniel's take now.
Yeah, Daniel, why is this movie perfect?
Right. So I think there are multiple levels on which you can enjoy this movie. But I'll just say that watching it this time, I just had a stupid grin on my face the entire time, because it's sold entirely on the premise that you buy Vin Diesel's charisma and you just want to watch a crazy movie, like you said, about a Vin Diesel D&D adventure where he's like a perfect Gary Stu, chosen one trope story going across space with crazy necromonger enemies all over the place. Like it's just a crazy story that like I think the story definitely falls apart when you like think too hard about it, but you're just like, no, he's a force of nature Gary Stu Riddick character that he's the chosen one. He has to defeat the bad guy. He's an anti-hero. Like it's you put a bunch of tropes in a bowl and you pick out a few, and then you just follow Vin Diesel's charismatic performance for 2 hours, and it's great and wonderful, and that's what I enjoyed on the surface. On this time, I really liked how. So they did a mixture of kind of like telling and showing, which I found confusing, which makes me think that there were like weird writers' room choices going on because they didn't want it to just like go over people's heads. But there's a lot of like world building that's actually quite clever and like not the usual just like them telling you what's going on. But then they have like Judi Dench narrating for 5 minutes in the beginning of the movie, which is like, why do you do that? But so again, on this viewing, I actually really liked the world building, except for the parts that were bad, which there were just a few of those.
Daniel, have you seen the director's cut?
Yeah, I watched the director's cut. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So I had watched the normal cut this time, but I've definitely seen the director's cut. I think the director's cut is probably, or maybe they call it the extended cut, but I think I think the extended cut is better. It doesn't have Judi Dench ruining things in the same places, and like it has a slightly different ending scene, which I think works better.
Why is Judi Dench ruining things?
Oh, just
explain
the narration.
Like her character is a tell don't show vehicle for the entire story. Like
yes, she serves no actual purpose in the movie.
They had like a $20 million Judi Dench budget, and they're like, by golly, we spent $20 million in Judi Dench. We're gonna have her explain things to the audience, equally spaced throughout the movie, and they did that, and I wish they hadn't, because I think the movie would have been better for it.
Yeah. But
I think she is a victim of what Matt was talking about, where like just throw everything against the wall, like every idea we have, because like what the fuck is an elemental? I still don't know, other than it's Judi Dench
awesome.
doing air swoopies.
I mean, I love that they don't explain it, actually. Like this, that's the sort of world building stuff where I'm like, I'm so happy they didn't spend 15 minutes telling me the story of the elementals and like what their powers are, and like how the necromongers are, their history. Like I don't care. I just like to see them interacting in this crazy world that I completely buy, because it's fun. It's fun to exist in this place.
Yeah, but with the elementals, you're right. I don't care. With the necromongers, I think we get enough exposition. Like they're crazy cult that is obsessed with some sort of underworld that appears real, because the main guy can do like
magic,
swoopy ghost powers that no one else can do. So it appears like that's just a legitimate thing, which is fascinating. Because I mean, Matt, you and I talked for a long time about religion in Pitch Black and what we thought that movie was saying about religion, and then that gets thrown into this movie. The imam character comes back, but also this is a movie with elemental things and undead people that they use to communicate via chalices.
Which is awesome.
Wackiest shit.
Isn't that great?
Isn't
all of the technology? We need to just talk about like the necromongers world building that just happens in the background that is never commented on. Like in a lesser movie, they would have been like, oh yes, we need to go to the corpse phone where we speak into the mouths of our corpses so that they can communicate on the subspace frequency. But no, they just they have Tandy Newton and Carl Urban just like talking to these creepy corpses, and it's clear. It's like perfectly clear what's going on.
More importantly, they have Tandy Newton make out with one of them, and there's no indication that like the guy on the other end feels that or anything.
Right? Yeah, he doesn't. She's just doing it because that's what a necromonger would do. It's awesome.
Well, because Tandy Newton is the fucking best.
Yeah. Well, I feel like her entire performance in this movie is just her interpretation of what this character is like, and because no one else in the movie is doing anything close to what she's doing. And it makes it like she brings so much to the movie with the Lady Macbeth, except way over the top, and just having a great time.
Yeah, she's great. She's great. I mean, as much as I agree with you guys about Judi Dench as well being the exposition fairy, I think it's hilarious that she's in this movie too. And I actually read that the reason she's in this movie is because Vin Diesel just really super wanted her in this movie and was borderline creepy about it, where he would just he wouldn't stop sending her flowers until she agreed to be in this movie.
And her performance is like the worst of her career.
Yeah. Well, she wrote in her autobiography, she's like, I had no idea what was going on I had no idea when they gave me the lines. I said the lines and I left. I was here for a day. And so she just had no idea she's like, the sets were nice. They looked cool. And that's all she had to say about it.
That makes more sense because she kind of looks confused in every scene.
Yes.
Yeah.
She's supposed to be the all-knowing, all-powerful elemental lady. And yeah, it's just ridiculous.
She's not playing a character at any point. She's just
she's Judi Dench. She's playing Judi Dench, which she is.
Right. I think something Daniel said a minute ago is the key to actually enjoying the movie. Like, people, this is not my original observation, that he's basically supposed to be Space Conan the Barbarian, and
sure.
And that's what it is. Like Conan the Barbarian, the idea of Conan the Barbarian as an archetype is this is the most badass guy. There's not going to be like struggle in the normal sense where the protagonist he's just already awesome. Yeah. The only struggle he really has in this movie is he going to actually choose to care about people or not? And that's present. That works. It's all right.
Yeah. Kind of. I mean, he's not really an anti-hero in this movie.
No, yeah. I find that very strange that I think that's just detail on the Riddick character, that he kind of sells himself as an anti-hero, but he explicitly doesn't do anything morally weird in either Pitch Black or this movie. He's just kind of kind of off, but grungy.
He's a survivor.
Yeah, he's a survivor.
I think in Pitch Black, you could at least argue that the movie frames him as I mean, the movie works brilliantly because it's like the first half of the movie you think Vin Diesel is the villain.
Yeah.
And then the second half of the movie, it's revealed that no, he's not. So at least you can make the anti-hero argument there because he spends half the movie being the antagonist. But yeah, here he never does anything wrong. Like the movie like feigns towards him having difficulty with a moral choice, but he always chooses the morally correct option. Like he always saves the person. He always does the right thing. So like, yeah, it just comes off like it's not an important part of his character at all.
Yeah, well, in this, it's funny because it can't hold up at all because he specifically goes to crematoria to find Jack, aka Kira, and like so from the beginning, like from that point on, you're just like, oh well, he's trying to save her, but then he just pretends that he's not, and it doesn't.
He's just a good guy. He's a prickly good guy.
That's yeah, but that's fine. I mean, I don't. It's interesting because I'm like
chaotic.
It's been way too long since I saw Conan the Barbarian, I guess. But the point of Conan the Barbarian isn't necessarily that he's like this amoral anti-hero. I mean, he does go to war against the bad guy. I think Conan is a hero. He's just the kind of hero who will like cut someone in half like vertically, and then make a quip about it.
Yeah, he's not Captain America.
Yeah.
He's gonna murder folks, but it's always the bad guys.
But like,
Yes.
I agree that it's a little confusing that it's sold this way. So correct me if I'm wrong, but I think in the director's cut, the final line, "You keep what you kill," is spoken by Carl Urban, right?
The final line is spoken by Carl Urban, and then there's a zoom out, and then there's Judi Dench voiceover, which completely ruins the end of the movie.
So in the director's cut,
I didn't know
in the
that.
director's cut, Vin Diesel says, "You keep what you kill," and he like almost smiles a little bit, and then it's over. And it's like,
and then it's over with no Judi Dench. Such a better ending.
Which is a better ending, but it's sort of intimating that it's like this was his plan, which like I don't think that was actually his plan. Like,
oh, that's interesting. I didn't read it as that. I read it as a moment of realization. Like he kills the guy and sees the people, and then it's like, oh yeah, you keep what you kill. Like,
well, I like that better. But he seemed to just be like completely grief stricken by having just lost Kira, who he spent the entire movie trying to save, and then like that he would say that would be like, what? That's not your priority right now, Riddick. The world is cruel, and you've been punished again for trying to do good.
Don't worry, he's gonna now lead the necromongers to their Valhalla or something.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think that's what's great about the movie Riddick is that we learned that he actually just got bored with that.
Which is
So we got to spend a lot of time talking about the crematoria section because it's basically the whole movie. And again, I need to reiterate what the movie should have been. I really do like the stuff between him and Kira in this movie because like we don't see this, but it's implied he like left her behind, which she interpreted as "you're slowing me down." He interpreted as "I'm doing this for you because I am dangerous. Being around me is dangerous." But also, like, it's implied or it's directly stated that she went to prison hoping to get the same eye surgery that he got.
Yeah,
and that was just a bunch of bullshit.
Yeah. So just so everyone knows.
Here comes deep lore.
In the video game Chronicles of Riddick: Escape from Butcher Bay, one of the best video games of all time, you actually get the eye shine in that game. You start out without it. You're just Riddick with no eye shine, and then you're like injured at some point, and you have to go into some like. There's a lot of stealth sections of that game, and it's actually really hard at first because you don't have dark vision, so you're creeping around in the dark, and everything is dark, and so it's hard. But then, this like, healer type person, you have like one of those Furion moments, which they don't really happen in the that's another. Okay, I know this, I'm going everywhere, but like the other thing about the extended edition is that the extended edition has these like interludes where the Furion voice comes into his mind, right? That doesn't happen at all. Zero in the in the normal cut. So anyway, he gets one of those Furion voice interludes, and then his eyes are are shined after that, and then he can creep around in the dark and gank people.
Oh, so it's like a Furion thing.
It's a Furion.
Okay.
I mean, you could even argue that the reason he gets it is because he needs it. Like it's a response to his circumstances that he's creeping around in the dark, and so he gets night vision. I don't know if that's necessarily true, but
here's what I don't like about it is like it has nothing to do with this movie. Like the cool thing about Pitch Black was it was a movie in which suddenly the sun goes away, and now the scary antagonist is the best person here because he's the only one that can see. That has nothing to do with this movie.
You're reading way. This is look. You've selected your D&D character. You rolled the dice, and 6 was night vision, and that's why Riddick has shiny eyes. And there's nothing deeper about it. Nothing.
No, that's absolutely not true.
Like he has night vision. That is his character.
The movie is called Pitch Black for a reason.
I'm talking
the
about
movie takes
this movie.
place.
This Pitch Black. Sure, you have there's like themes and stuff there, and the Chronicles of Riddick. This is a Dungeons and Dragons adventure, and you have rolled the Riddick character who has night vision.
I see. Of course,
the Riddick class.
But don't you think that they could have at least like I don't know
the
if
puppies,
you're right?
He has the puppies have the shiny eyes, and he's the animal. It's an animal. It's a theme. It's a metaphor for how he's animal. He's a Furion animal.
He also has the power to shoot out a blast of energy.
He can do that. That was cool, I guess.
I wish they'd actually. So if I had to rewrite this movie, I would make it so that everyone thought he was the chosen one, but that this was clearly just like a bogus prophecy, and that that doesn't make any sense, and it like never was a real thing, and all the Furion stuff was nonsense. I think that would have been better at like a trope subversion level, but because this movie came out in 2004 and there was like no good sci-fi for 10 years since then, like I'm willing to forgive it.
Yeah, I mean you can see the hackishness of the writing, unfortunately.
Yes.
like you can see where they're like, all right, we have to. I mean, it's like half hackish, where it's like, okay, we know that we have to give Riddick some grounding in this in the Necromonger's story. Otherwise, it's like the random adventures of Riddick through this world, and now there's Necromongers.
Yeah, why can't they just own that? Like that's still cool. I would have watched that.
I think that would have. That's kind of what I'm maybe saying, is that would have been better than saying, oh, Riddick is from a planet of people who are all wiped out by literally this specific man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he has a flashback to this man when he was a child, even. I think that's implied in the director's cut.
That's all really dumb. I don't like it. I also like I think you're absolutely right, Daniel, that the Necromongers are really cool, and the way in which they are developed is really interesting. Like I love the sniffer dudes.
Oh my god, I love
just
those.
Don't go explained. They're just sniffer dudes.
They're quite creepy.
Yeah. I love that. I freaking love
it's such a wonderful idea. But I think it's weird how the movie treats them. Like half the time the movie treats them as this terrible force that everyone knows about, and half the time the movie treats them as this thing that you whisper about but no one's ever seen. Like I think it's is it Judi Dench who talks about like, I'm one of the only ones who have seen them and lived to tell the tale, or she's talking about Riddick, I think, technically, even though he was a child. But like that makes it really weird when like Riddick is on the planet that the entire force has just taken over, and then he gets captured by bounty hunters and flown away, and you're just like, wait, what? Like, how did they let that happen? That was awkward.
It was the old writing problem of Riddick needs to be on crematoria now.
Yeah.
Let's use the mercenaries and like just don't worry about it. It's a D&D.
It is funny how because when I distinctly remember watching this movie 20 years ago or whatever, and just thinking like, it's the mercenaries. They're gonna get him, and this is clever. And now I'm like, that's the stupidest thing I've ever seen. Like, why would they come back to this planet that's under attack by this army of death cultists? This makes no sense.
Yeah.
It's like I've never had two wildly different opinions on something like this.
I'm actually willing to forgive this, as it was his plan to be caught by them as one of his like backup plans, because he's Riddick. And so he's just like, this is like, how would they have found him otherwise, right? Like, no, he specifically wanted to be caught by the mercenaries, thus he sought them out, and that's how he got to crematory.
They still got to land on the planet, man.
They're mercenaries. They got the little pods that come out and like fly away, and they have subterfuge.
The entire planet is covered in the scariest force that the world has ever seen. And they just gonna do yoink.
They wouldn't be very good mercenaries if they couldn't do that.
I think my favorite thing about both of these movies is that they never at any point explain like the economics of the situation, like which I know from the world background lore that it's basically like it's literally just the government like puts bounties on people, and then they pay private prisons to hold particularly bad convicts, and so that's how all of this works. But like none of it is ever explained. You're just like, why is the prison paying for the convict? What?
Yeah, I mean, I think maybe this is a director's cut thing, but I thought that there's a little bit of that in this movie where they kind of like, it's where
They're
Toombs
haggling.
and the prison guy is haggling over the price a little bit, and they kind of explain that, I have to go back and check my logs with Central or something.
Okay, I don't remember that line on this. They might, I don't know.
That didn't really bother me. Like I thought that was.
I don't. Yeah, it doesn't bother me either. I actually like that. I actually like that it's not explained.
Yeah.
If anything, I wish the movie would have less talking.
Yes, please. No talking, please. Just have Riddick hang out in a shadow and then jump out and stab someone with his knife.
But he can still do his one-liners because those are great.
Well, yeah.
Because it was my plan.
I liked, so the ending is cool. And I don't know if I'm reading the ending correctly. So he's fighting the Lord Marshal, right? And Karl Urban is about to Macbeth his way to victory. And then the Lord Marshal moves out of the way, but he moves right to where Riddick is standing, which is also awesome. Does he, in that moment, choose to be killed by Riddick versus choosing to be killed by Karl Urban? Does he can either retreat back into his body or make the move to the new area? I wasn't sure about that.
That's an interesting pull. I read it as he did it. It was like too fast to really give him agency there. It was like, well, he can get out of the way, and the mechanic is established that once he moves out of the way, he can't wherever he goes with his ghost, he commits to. Maybe he can cancel. Sure. I didn't know if that was possible, but I just saw it as like now he's stuck being killed by Riddick because Riddick saw this coming. So
yeah, sure. Pretty much how I read it too. I
do like the idea that he's like just fucking hated Karl Urban so much. He's like, no.
Yeah.
Well, see, like
if I'm
mediocre,
it was. I thought it was great where he was like, he like turns to him and he's like, Vako, and he actually thinks Vako is going to help him. Like that's Karl Urban is actually a true believer, Necromonger, to the extent that he even believes that like I'm better at this than him. I should be the true Necromonger leader. And like he actually is loyal in a like twisted Necromonger kind of way, to the extent that Vako that the Lord Marshal just never saw this coming at all. And that's just like it was beautiful. It was a beautiful performance.
It is. The more Daniel talks about this, the more I love it.
It's every side character in this movie has an arc, and that's like you cannot say that about most schlocky like campy bad side. Like I remember you said early in the start how this was kind of like campy, and how you didn't think of it as being campy back when we first saw it. And I think that's just like, I don't even know if it's campy. It's like a weird, it's like self-serious, but like, it's not the sort of camp from like 10 or 20 years before. It wasn't intentionally camp at the time. No. It just kind of comes off as like kind of silly, but you know, it's not camp. It's just that you have to
silly.
Yeah, you have to appreciate it on a level of I'm not gonna take this too seriously.
Yeah.
Which I think edges on camp, but I don't think that is really camp. I think that the reason why I was liking the movie more the more you were talking there, I think, is that basically there's two actually good parts of this movie, which are the part in crematoria, pretty much beginning to end, and the part where he comes back to Helion Prime to kill the dude, pretty much that whole part. So, which actually comes right after the crematoria part. So you could almost say just like the last part of the movie, the last, I don't know how much runtime that is.
It's like an hour, actually.
Yeah. But I think what makes the movie a massive sort of drag. I don't know. I don't want to say a holistic thing like that. The beginning of the movie sucks.
It sucks real bad. Yeah. The thing I'm totally with you there, except for the opening. I actually think the opening with Riddick on that one weird planet
so
with a beard and long scraggy hair, fighting against the
Tombs and the others,
against Tombs and establishing that relationship. I actually really like that because that's just this one-off encounter, or I thought was a one-off encounter until they brought Tombs back into it stupidly. But it's just a one-off encounter where we're like the movie is reestablishing who Riddick is and like what his life is, which is like perpetually running away from people trying to kill him. And I thought that was a really cool, badass establishing moment. And then he gets to Helion Prime for the first time, and the movie just like grinds to a halt, and it just sits there for like 30 minutes. And this is when all the exposition comes in. And to Daniel's credit, there are really good parts in this. There are really interesting stuff with the necromongers and all that stuff. But yeah, like Vin Diesel's role in this part of the movie is really just kind of wait around until the plot picks up again. And it's just like I know they wanted to bring back Keith David as the Imam, but like I didn't care about any of that stuff. Like
I think honestly,
how recently had you seen Pitch Black before this?
When we did it for the show, so like
a couple months ago,
2 months ago. Yeah.
Okay, because watching it this time, it actually scanned as a direct sequel much more clearly. Like I to the extent I wasn't even really bothered by the Iman sections because it was like, oh, this is we're tying off the bow of the previous movie that I watched 2 days ago. Great, he has a family. He has a daughter because all of his sons died.
All of his sons died.
How thematically beautiful. And then clearly he has to die because everyone that Riddick ever interacts with dies because he's Job. But that's
I just I didn't think that part of the story needed the bow tying. Like I think the Kira section is so much more interesting, and I wonder if there's a way to just get him to the crematorium immediately, like right away.
I mean, I'm going to be even harder on the whole Helion Prime beginning part. Like it's just maybe I'm having a different impression because I did watch the original cut, and it sounds like you both watched the director's cut. But in the original cut, there's scenes in there that just jarringly cut with no film language indication that we're cutting between time periods or locations, and it's like, wait, where did Judi Dench go? Wait, this is later in the day? What?
Yeah.
What's happening? I
wasn't too thrown off from the director's cut. I think it's supposed to be a little disorienting because it very quickly goes from like, who are these necromongers? They sound scary to like they've been invaded and defeated over like an evening. So it's like, I think I agree that could have been shot better, but they also probably blew their budget on the entire like necromongers invading sequence. Yeah. So it was
let's remember their $105 million budget.
Yeah.
Holy Pitch Black, by the way, worldwide made $50 million. What the fuck? What, like, I don't understand. I don't understand how you give this movie this much money. Like, what
was this before or after XXX?
I don't know. I mean, I agree with you. Vin Diesel is a much bigger star. Totally. Much bigger star. I understand a lot of that budget probably went to that. But what?
I mean, it kind of keeps like this is the first of many Vin Diesel D&D adventure movies since then, including, I would argue, the Fast and Furious franchise.
Sorry, Pitch Black, then Fast and the Furious, then Knock Around Guys. I haven't seen that. Then XXX, then A Man Apart, then Chronicles of Riddick. So
yeah, clearly XXX money. This is like he's proven himself as an action hero. Let's throw the bank at him.
Yeah,
but $105 million for nerdy elemental like space.
It's
Romans. Like it's just what?
Well,
they're awesome.
What's funny is there was nothing.
Take my money.
I can't think of anything that was like this
for like 10 years.
For like 10 years, like the next, and please correct me because I'm sure I'm forgetting something, but like the closest thing to this is like Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah, I was gonna say that,
which is a comedy, And I think that's the problem with this movie is they hadn't done all of the decade of Marvel films where they were like, okay, we understand how to make a blockbuster. You can make it as wild and zany in the sci-fi axis as you want, as long as you have your Han Solo, your well, this shit's whack character to react to everything. If you play it completely straight, basically like this movie does, people will reject it, and that's the problem.
Was this rated PG-13?
I think so. Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Nothing.
There's no way they spent $105 million on a movie that was rated R.
This is the actual problem with this movie. It should have been an R-rated movie, and they should have gotten rid of Judi Dench and also paid $50 million more on it.
I think.
You want more money? You want more money?
Yeah, I mean, making a PG-13 Riddick movie does seem a bit like making a PG-13 Predator movie or something. So
the problem with this movie is not that they can't show you the blood when you stab people. The problem with this movie is the script is nonsense.
Well, that too.
We haven't talked much about the direction here, and Matt, you and I had a lot to say about Twohy back in Pitch Black, and like some very like stylistic scenes, some very like powerful, like I'm gonna grab hold of the camera and do something a little bit different scenes. And I feel like in this movie, maybe because it was more money, like there just wasn't space to do that. Like every once in a while there was like a cut or like a camera move where I was like, that's kind of goofy. That reminds me of Pitch Black a little bit. But for the most part, I think this is just like a bog standard film, like very flatly filmed action movie.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think they were leaning a lot on their special effects, but there were a couple of like subtle moments, I would argue. So like two come to mind. One was the whole Anatoly's nose thing, whereas like there's just that like one shot where it's establishing that Anatoly senses something is wrong, and it's like the camera just like lingers on his nose for like a quarter second too long, and it's like, yeah, it's because it's the guy with the nose.
Yeah.
So I thought that was great, and then the entire sub thread where Jack/Kira is like getting better at sneaking up on Riddick over Pitch Black and this movie, to the point that she manages to sneak up on the Lord Marshal, which it's established no one can do, which I thought was great and not really called out, but like
that is great.
Yeah.
It's just a little through line there where it's like, she actually got to be better than Riddick at this thing.
I did so 5 years of podcasting and studying movies did enable me to notice that Anatoly gets smashed in the nose by Riddick's swingy thing.
Where did he get the thing?
Not something I noticed before.
Where did that swingy thing come from?
The swingy thing? I don't know, man.
Where does anything come from in this movie? I think my favorite shot of the movie is actually when Riddick does like the daring like run out into the sun with the rope to pick up Kira and then lands.
He's like smoking.
Yeah, he's smoking. That's such a good effect. Like I actually think
just flexing every muscle on his body.
The special effects in this movie, like I think the beasts look terrible, like legitimately terrible. Like somehow they look worse than the monsters in Pitch Black looked, which I didn't think looked very great to begin with, but the little tiger monsters look just bad.
Yeah, it was 2004 though. Like that's about as good as things look.
$105 million.
Look, our computers were bad. We didn't know how to use polygons yet.
I think that this movie, the reason I can never really condemn this movie too much is like it feels like the imagination worlds that I would make when I was a kid. And to me, that actually has a certain value to it. Like just a sort of unfettered, unrestrained imagination where we're going to have elementals, we're going to have scaly tigers, we're going to have muscle dude who you just want to be him. Just cram it all in there. It doesn't matter. We're not. There's a story. There's a plot. It's fine. That's not why we're here. None of us are here for that. We're here for spectacle and imagination. And I think the unfortunate thing is the spectacle doesn't really hold up because now we have, the Infinity Saga on film, which is just like blows everything before it away in terms of like just visual spectacle and awesomeness. But I can still put myself back in the position of where I was when this movie came out, and how it was sort of one of the first things, if not the first thing like it, that I had seen.
Yeah,
there's my defense of it.
Don't get me wrong here. I am happy that this movie exists. I am. Like, I don't think it should. Like, I don't understand the industry that gives someone $105 million to make this movie. Like, I legitimately still don't understand it, but I'm glad it does, because I like weird experimentation is, I think, one of the things that science fiction can do the most. Like, it has the most freedom to just get silly and weird. Like, the movie I compare this the most to in my head is Jupiter Ascending, which is another movie that I don't think works very well.
Another perfect movie.
And is very silly. I like Jupiter Ascending better because I think the Wachowskis are better directors than Twohy is. But I mean, I love these movies that like take huge, ridiculous, silly shots and make giant worlds that you really feel like you're only getting to see a glimpse of. I do think that I like the idea of this movie better than I like the movie itself, is kind of where I land with it. Like, I will look back fondly on the Necromongers. I don't want to watch this movie again. I just really don't.
Yeah, I just want to watch the scene where he uses the chain in the prison to coil himself up and then spin so down. Cool. I just want to watch that on a loop.
Yeah.
I mean, this it speaks to teenage Daniel, because it's like the action scenes actually still hold up, in my opinion. Like, Vin Diesel clearly isn't like a martial artist. But they still manage to cut things in a way where it's like his physical menacingness is clear, and he's just clouding on everyone, and it's great.
Yeah. Well, he's doing like WWE stuff on them, which is completely appropriate.
And he has like cool knives, and he knows knife facts. Like, what else do you want as a teenage boy but to like be able to spin a knife around cool, like, and detect how unbalanced it is to the ground?
Okay, but like
that's so cool.
Okay, but like, admit that when that happened, you could tell it was CG and it was bad.
2004, Scott. 2004.
When he's spinning the knife, I'm like, oh, that's a computer.
He's spinning it so fast,
that it turns into a computer effect.
Yeah, exactly.
For some reason, I'm thinking about John Carter, even though that movie was like 10 years after this one.
This is a better movie than John Carter.
It definitely is. I think the reason I'm thinking about it is that it's one of these. It's yet another attempt to make Star Wars, is what it is. It's everybody tried and failed to make the next Star Wars for like 30 years, and I think the only thing that's come close to being the next Star Wars has actually been the MCU in terms of capturing the zeitgeist and actually being like actually having like the humor and the heart. And that was the thing about Star Wars, is it had both humor and heart. And a lot of these attempts to remake it had one or none of those. I think this one actually has some heart. I think it takes itself too seriously, and that's probably why people didn't love it, and also the terrible writing in the first half.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. I think Guardians of the Galaxy 1 and 2 are a better Star Wars than a lot of Star Wars is, especially the prequel series or the sequel series, except for The Last Jedi, because that's a perfect movie. Shut up. I don't know. I don't know what else to say about this movie other than I did not really like watching it that much, but I love that it exists. I do.
Well, if you could change one thing about the production, you have been given $105 million.
Okay.
Judi Dench, Vin Diesel, and the best special effects crew that has ever special effected.
Okay.
What changes do you make? You have the same script.
I have the same script. What?
Yep, same script. You can't change the script. The studio says the script is golden.
Parts out of the script.
Nope, it's fixed.
I would shoot the movie as if Tandy Newton was the main character, because she's the best. I mean, I would, like, you can't tell me I have to do the same script. I mean, I would there's got to be a way to focus it more on crematoria, which, by the way, best name of a planet ever. Hey, where we gonna go? What are we gonna call the planet that gets really hot? It's so hot that people turn to ash. Crematoria. Yeah.
So okay,
perfect.
You know something I didn't actually catch until my 20th viewing of this movie. So there's this whole scene where they have to land in crematoria, and it's all tense because it's like you got to land in this short window where the doors open to because they're bringing Riddick to crematoria. And they only have so much time to land there, right? It's like there's clearly stakes involved of getting into this docking port at crematoria.
For no reason.
And then about an hour and 5 minutes later, when Riddick is going to leave crematoria, they're just like, well, okay, basically the entire ending sequence takes 30 minutes. So clearly there's like not that much time pressure. But then also they're just like standing in a hangar with the door open to the hotness outside.
The 700-degree
right.
inferno. Yeah, I noticed that this time as well. I noticed a lot more science bullshit that bothered me this time. Like for example, as they're flying in toward the planet, you can clearly see both the day side and the night side, which means that their ship is completely within the scope of the star.
Right. Yeah.
Because otherwise they wouldn't be able to see the day side, which means their ship should be incredibly hot.
Also, why can't they
Stupid shit
land
like
during
this.
night? It's a spaceship. It's in space. It's really cold in space.
I think, Daniel, that the answer is that it was a cooler scene this way. I think that's why they made
like
most of the decisions in this movie.
3.5 Kelvin in space. That's
I think
photon
it's so
temperature of
hilarious.
space.
The things that get you guys upset and the things that get me upset are like so different. Like I don't give a shit about any of that at all. The thing I give a shit about is like the plot
So
inconsistencies.
you remember that cool staff where the guy's like marching with the staff and then he like slams the staff on the ground and then the orb comes out and then everyone's like standing around them. What all those necromongers are like?
Yeah, why why was that? Why?
And then it kills all of them. And it's awesome. That was awesome.
So to me, this all falls under the heading of why do they use knives in Dune? There's two answers, obviously. There's the Watsonian answer, which is because they have personal shields, and so they need to have a knife so that you can stab people. And then there's the Doyleist answer, which is I wanted them to have knives because I wanted it to be a medieval feeling world. And so I made up some bullshit about personal shields. So they just want to have cool scenes and then they make up shit to make it make sense, right? That's
sure.
On a certain level, I'm fine with that as being the way you tell science fiction stories.
Yeah, I mean, on a certain level, that is just writing, and the job of a writer is to make those two sides marry each other in a satisfying way.
Yes.
Or they make you so entertained that you don't care, which is I neatly fall into that camp.
Okay, I think we're done talking about the Chronicles of Riddick, right?
I think so. Let me check my notes. Yes, they're blank.
The little guns that make the noise and then they like make people go flying. Those are really cool.
Those are, yeah.
I want one of those.
As much as we just talked about how the staff thing was didn't make any sense.
But it does.
It's
like it's a callback to how they destroy the worlds.
I like it. That's like so many other things with the necromongers. I love it conceptually. It's just like, yeah, of course we have this giant fucking weapon that can blow up the planet. Why don't we make mini versions of this weapon that we can just like send in someplace and kill everyone in there? I don't get why you need to do that if like thousands of men are just waiting nearby. Just have them open fire on all the people standing there. But it is cool. Totally. It's cool.
Yeah. Just to show how badass they are.
Yeah.
That they're just going to stand there and wait for this to happen.
And we need the sequel that has them get to the underworld and figure out what the fuck's going on there, because that sounds like a crazy place.
Right, like isn't this just like objectively the correct religion of this universe? Like, aren't they kind of the good guys? Like they want to just bring everybody to under heaven.
I don't.
Where you all get to have the cool like move through space powers that the Lord Marshal has.
I just want you to like step back and realize that you just said the phrase under heaven, which is kind of like.
No, he clearly has been there. It has clearly given him superpowers to go there. And he can take everyone there if they just follow him. It exists.
I'm not a theologist. I believe the term for under heaven is hell.
I don't think so.
It's more of a Hades type idea, right?
I don't see any like upper heaven folks around. They could have had those. That would have been cool.
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of what I thought the elementals were like supposed to be doing, but
Oh, that would have been such a good idea if there were like an actual Necromonger opposite faction, which had like even gaudier armor. That would have been great.
Yeah. Well, like, so Space Marines versus Chaos Marines is what it should be.
Yes,
where they're both terrible and you don't actually think you want to go with either of them. But one of them has like angelic iconography and one of them has scary death iconography.
They were kind of going for like, because that was new mecha, right? Helion Prime has
basically,
like, is that?
I believe so.
So there, I think maybe that was a missed opportunity. They could have had to like, they totally could have done that with Helion Prime.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I think Pitch Black has actually a lot to say about religion. That's a lot of what the movie is talking about, and this not so much.
Well, not so much in a way that works. I mean, clearly they're trying to. Like, they have the scene where the guy's like, "We're a world of liberal principles" or whatever,
and then his soul gets ripped out. That's so metal.
And then his physical soul gets ripped out of his body.
Oh my god, that scene is perfect.
And everybody in the room immediately kneels, and I think that kind of speaks to what our attempted steelman of the movie is like. What happens to your religious faith when somebody comes along with clearly supernatural abilities? Like that's actually kind of an interesting idea. Yeah. They don't take it anywhere beyond that.
That could have been much better explored.
Yeah. They just simultaneously proved that souls are real and that your God doesn't give a shit about yours being ripped out.
But then Riddick kills under Jesus.
Well, now Riddick is under Jesus.
Yeah.
Which is, again, metal.
Okay, we have to stop. We have to stop talking about this movie.
I can't
take it
I
anymore.
love it.
No, we have to talk about people whining about things now.
As we do.
Fine.
Yeah, so that is a great transition. Thank you, Matt. So I want to set the stage for why we're having this conversation now. So basically, I think both of you know about a show called The Adventure Zone, correct?
Yep,
correct.
McElroy's. Matt and I did a whole show talking about their balance arc, which I still think remains one of the best audio stories I've ever witnessed. I think it's just wonderful. They are on their third arc now. They went through Amnesty, which was, I didn't think it was as good, but I still enjoyed it. Then Graduation with the brother Travis taking over as DMing. And I'm pretty mixed on that one. There's parts of it I like, there's parts of it I don't like very much, whatever. We're not here to talk about whether The Adventure Zone Graduation is good. What we're here to talk about, and what kind of spurred this conversation, is this morning, actually, The Adventure Zone released one of their like meta episodes that they call the Adventure Zone, where they just kind of talk about their process and where they answer some questions and they talk about how they think the story's going and what they're trying for and how long it's going to be till it's over and all that stuff. So they did this today, and they kind of tangentially referenced critique and criticism that is happening of this season of this show. A quick summary for those of you that are not aware of this: there are a lot of people out there that are not happy with the Adventure Zone Graduation, and they are not happy with the Adventure Zone Graduation in very vocal ways. If you go to the Taz subreddit, it's basically just people ragging on Travis in some of the least charitable ways I've seen ever. I don't think that this particular story is that great. There are moments in it that I really like. There are moments that I don't like so much. But there are people that are just like have made it their mission to hate listen to this thing and rag on it constantly in this subreddit. And what happened today is Travis basically said, not in so many words, to these people, he basically said, I'm not going to listen to any of your critiques. That's not really what he said. What he said was he takes time to like sort through all the critique and come up with the ones that he thinks are actual, like an objective thing he can work off of, and a lot of people being pissy and whining and stuff. And to this particular segment of the fandom, that was, I'm not listening to you. And they got very mad about it. They got very upset because they said he's ignoring our critique. And this sent me down an interesting kind of rabbit hole here, because first of all, I don't think it's true. But even if it was true, so what? He doesn't have to listen to the rabble. You're creating something. I think there's an interesting thing, and like I said earlier, Matt, you and I have kind of dealt with this, and we've talked to Wildbow about this, in our interview with him, about like how do you respond to how the audience is receiving things and how they aren't, and the difficult line to navigate. Because I think it would be fair to say that Wildbow is the type of person that pays very close attention to what his audience is saying about his story and will adjust and change and morph the story a little bit based on the reception. But not in like a huge, like I don't want to overemphasize that, because he's not going to like write a completely different story.
No, it's he has in mind what he's trying to do, plus or minus. I mean, I know that he also improvises somewhat, but he has the direction in mind, and he's assessing whether or not it's landing the way he intends it to land, and then he'll calibrate based on that. But if people just if there's a vocal subsection of people who just don't like something, and that thing is critical to kind of the thing he's trying to do, then I'm pretty sure historically he has especially in his later stories just kind of been like, well, it's too bad. I guess we're gonna have to get through this tough period of time.
Sure.
But another factor, of course, is that it usually is a vocal minority. Like, most people consuming most things, I think, are just enjoying it, or they stop listening.
Right. Yeah.
But for some reason there's this emerging psychological thing that I think is maybe at the root of what we're talking about here, where people, especially in long-running, ongoing narratives, be it web serial, be it audio, live play, D&D or whatever, will switch into, God, I hate this thing. I can't wait to listen to it next week so I can write another post about how terrible it is. And I think that's terrible. I think that's a terrible thing to do, and I think that we should mimetically engineer it so that people see that as being the terrible waste of their lives that it is, and stop doing that.
Yeah. This happened to many things that I've enjoyed over time, where I've followed things for like basically 10 years at some points, and slowly watched this tide turn happen within a sub-community. And it's really subtle, because it's sort of like the common knowledge goes from this thing is good and it's more fun to talk about how it's fun and exciting, to the common knowledge being that this thing is bad and we're only going to just crap all over this thing. And like it's a little like game. Even it's like it's the game that is being played within the sub community is about the badness.
Sure.
And like it's dissent to even disagree. And it makes it's hard to talk about without specific examples, because you might just be like, some things are actually bad and worthy of criticism, but it's like that's not what makes it's not healthy, I guess. And if that becomes your entire community is just like pooping on somebody's work, it's like, it's not good for anybody.
Yeah, I mean, and in my opinion, like, I don't care if someone is critiquing. Like, I actually don't care if someone spends like 3 hours a week hate listening to something just to post a mean post about it online somewhere. I don't care. Like, if that's the way you want to spend your time, I agree with you. I don't think that's healthy. I don't think that's good. But if that's what you want to do, knock yourself out. Chase your bliss. But I think the thing that gets me is that there is this feeling of ownership over this stuff that confuses me. That someone says, because I wrote this critique, whether it's fair or not, I'm not going to judge someone's critique of something. There millions and millions and millions of different lenses and angles you could take on just about any property. And I don't want to make a broad statement about everyone that happens to not like the Adventure Zone graduation is critiquing in bad faith. I don't think that's true. But like, there's this assumption that I see. I mean, I went into the episode for the Adventure Zone on Reddit to kind of see what the reaction was, because I listened to it and thought, well, he's acknowledging the mistakes he's made in the past, and he's acknowledging the ways in which he's going to try to fix them in the future, and what he wants to do with the story and all these things. And I was expecting like a warm reception to this episode, and I did not see that at all. And what I saw was people saying, he basically just said that he's not listening to us. And so I'm done. And I'm just like, why do you think that just because you've written something that the creator like owes you a response?
So I think they're lying. I don't think they're done. I think they're enjoying saying that they're done. Like it's like rioting after your favorite team loses a sports game, but you're still going to go to the next sports game because you want to see your team fail again or something. Like they're probably going to continue hate watching it, right? And then that's their new twisted human way of enjoying the product, is this relationship where they get to be upset about how the creator is not listening to them.
Yeah, that's fair. I guess I just don't understand. I don't understand where that kind of entitlement, because that's what it feels like to me, and it feels like entitlement.
Because it's fun to burn stuff after a sports game where your favorite team. Like I think it's actually this kind of animalistic human thing that's the actual seed of this.
I don't know. Like I don't know if I see people in sports teams like get mad when the coach of the team doesn't change their strategy based on a post I wrote on a sports blog.
Yeah, I can. So this is the closest that I can get to relating to this. Is a period of time when I was, I think, like 14 or 15, when I was playing EverQuest, and I started out playing. I'm not going to go too far into the weeds here, I promise. Started out playing a wizard. I was playing a wizard in EverQuest. EverQuest is a massively multiplayer online role-playing game, and it was widely believed that the wizard class was underpowered. And so instead of playing EverQuest, I gradually shifted over to complaining in message boards about how underpowered the wizard class was, and how this was terrible, and how this was basically an assault on me as a human being. And of course, there were lots of other people doing the same thing. Everyone complaining all the time about class balance and how their class deserves to be higher. I could literally still, I'm now more than double that age, and I can recite to you the arguments for why wizards deserved a couple of little perks here and there to balance them out. The thing was, I did feel entitlement because I had given them money. I was in this world now, and it wasn't fair that I didn't get what I felt was the fair share of the experience. And I'm the reason I think this relates is I think that when you identify as like a fan of a thing, you've put in the time, maybe you've donated some money to the McElroys, you feel this idea of like, well, this is my world that I live in now. It's not like an MMO where you sort of are in that world. Not that I'm defending my behavior as a kid, but it gives you this sense of like, well, this is mine. I have a piece of this, and you begin to think of like, it's Travis. Travis is the DM, right? You begin to think of Travis. He's not being a good steward of our thing. Instead of, he's the creator of the thing, not our thing. But that's the mentality you slip into, and you slip into it, I think, very, very completely, to the point that you don't even realize that you've done that. But I think there is a sort of almost semantic switch that happens where you start thinking about the thing as our thing. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I think you're right there. I mean, I remember EverQuest, like the warrior community in EverQuest wrote the Warrior Bill of Rights, right? Like this is the rights they have as a class, and the ways in which the developers of the community were not respecting those rights.
Yeah.
That's a perfect comparison, because it is this entitlement, this ownership, that this thing belongs to me and you are not fulfilling your side of the deal. And I mean, normally, like in my opinion, the thing to do when you feel that way, if you feel like the game or the book or the podcast has betrayed what you thought it was in some fundamental way, then you just don't listen to it anymore.
But so I think it's deeper though, because it's like you, as the invested person with a sense of ownership over the thing, you feel that if only they listened to me, it would be better, right? Like, it's in your point of view, justifiable fury at the failures of this thing that you partially own, which you don't, but it's nonetheless feels justified because it is true. Like, if the content creator just listened to what you said, you would be happy, right? That's tautological. Like,
well, I don't even know if that's true, because I think one thing that is true about people is people are very, very, very good at knowing when they don't like something. Most people these days, especially people that are going to be listening to like a D&D live play podcast, are pretty well versed in story. Like, they understand story on a level where they can easily tell at a high level, like, what is a good story and what is a bad story. I do think people are very bad generally, I'm speaking generally, at going further than that and identifying why. Like I know this isn't good. I am not enjoying this. But they have a very hard time, generally, again, not everyone, generally, identifying why this is this way.
They might think they know that answer, though. They might think that if only this other thing had been changed in this way, they think they would like it more, which is all that really matters from their perspective.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is pretty fascinating because this is sort of an inside view conversation where you decide that this is that you have a claim to ownership over this thing, even though there's absolutely no like rational basis for that, but you just feel it so strongly in your gut that it becomes true for you, and then right after that happens, you become convinced that if it were changed in this way, then it would be better, and you would like it more, and everyone would like it more, and you become equally convinced that that's true despite any rational basis for that. And I think this is a pretty common move that people fall into in all sorts of domains, actually, not just fiction, but lots of areas of life.
I do wonder if this is sorry, go ahead. No,
I was just gonna say, if things were the way I want them to be, they would be better. Is like the natural default way that we think about things. It actually takes an extra level of effort to be like, but I'm just one person and I'm seeing this from a certain perspective and I could be wrong.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, is this just kind of what happens in fandom, using the term fandom broadly, that you eventually identify so much with a thing that thing becomes a part of your identity, to the point where if someone's changing it in a way you don't like, you feel the need, instead of just being able to separate yourself from it and say, well, maybe I just don't like Star Wars anymore. You're like, no, I am Star Wars fan. That is who I am. And therefore it is my duty to make sure Star Wars is the best it could possibly be. And the only way I know how to do that is by telling them all the ways in which they're bad.
Yeah, I think that's.
I don't really have the answer to like you have personally attacked me by mentioning Star Wars in this context, because I did make a video about how to fix Rise of Skywalker.
Here's the difference of this to me. This is important. I want to be clear here. I do not think critiquing and or saying here's how I think it would be better is inherently bad. I do not think there's anything wrong with that. I don't think that you, Matt Freeman, had any expectation that anyone in charge of making Star Wars was going to be watching your video and writing down notes, and then their failure to do that was a personal attack to you and your identity as a fan of Star Wars.
That's correct.
I think those are two different things. And I do not think there's anything wrong with critiquing things. I do not think there's anything wrong with writing a long screed about why you don't like something. That's fine. That's knock yourself out. There are plenty of communities that exists just so people can talk about the ways in which they don't like things. And I think those communities can get toxic, and I tend to not like that, but to each their own. I'm specifically talking about the kind of ownership that gets you mad when you are listening to something expecting to see someone address your complaint specifically, and then you're angry at them when they don't. And it just feels so weird to me. And I think it's because of the fact that we are so much more intimately connected with our creators than we ever have been. Like, you know, back when we were younger, like I knew some directors' names, right? I didn't know I didn't know the showrunners and the writers and all this stuff, and I think it's got even more so. Like I don't want to use Wildbow as an example here too much because I think his community is overall pretty amazing, but like that's a relationship that people feel like they know the guy pretty well because he is very active in just about every community that discusses his stories. So that comes with this feeling of, well, this idea that if I say something, he might actually see it. He might actually see my critique. Wow. And therefore, he should listen to it because I am right. I think it is a combination of a lot of these things.
Yeah. I mean, I think, it's interesting. You really provoked me to into a slightly different framing than I walked into this. Again, by mentioning Star Wars, first of all, because I do have this like feeling that, well, Star Wars is everyone's, meaning Star Wars is partially mine, and you're ruining my thing, which is crazy.
I mean, it's not
and insane.
Okay, I'm gonna push back a little here because I think media exists for the purpose of entertainment. Premise. Sure. It can definitely be the case that there was a much better way to do a thing. Corollary. It is not entirely unreasonable to be upset when the obviously thing that should have been done was not done. That was a confusing way of saying they didn't do what I thought they should have done. I think you're allowed to be internally upset at this. You're not allowed to like hold it against the creators of the thing because everyone is entitled to their own artistic vision, right? Like it's not. Yeah. You're not.
It's weird.
It is weird. So I mean, you can step back. I can step out of or into the mind of the fan, and as basically going from fan to creator. And as a creator, you can hold the content creation principles that I should be trying to make my fans happy. That is something you could have.
Sure.
And you could go about trying to like listen to everything they say and try and foster a kind of relationship where it is known, it is common knowledge that if you're upset about the direction of something that happens in this universe, your upsetness will be heard and possibly even addressed by the creator. Like that is an interaction that could exist within a fandom. But that there's no reason that you have to do that, right? Like that
to assume that is the expectation, right. Like is where I draw the line. And I think every creator out there would probably tell you, yeah, I fucking love to get feedback. I love to see how people are reacting to the thing I made. Because at the end of the day, what you want to do, you want people to like the thing you made. And you want to see if they don't like the thing that you made, you want to see why. And if something isn't working, you want to make adjustments to that. But I think the role of the creator is to sift through a lot of this stuff.
I've been there too, like where you read comments from people that have read something you've done and they're just pooping on it and they're relentlessly pooping on it. And even when you're like, hey, I wrote this thing, here's why I made these choices, they continue to poop on it. And it's like, well, I can't help you anymore, so I'm going to leave.
Yeah.
And that's really all you can do, I think.
And I think it's that choice is one seen as hostile to your community from your creator that I can't get my head around, and I just can't.
As a creator, I would just not consider those people my community anymore, which is perhaps not a move that is affordable to some creators, but is probably the one that's better for their mental health.
Yeah.
I do think that Star Wars is the perfect example of this because I do think that's what's happening, like in Star Wars in general, and maybe less so now that like it's been years from The Last Jedi, but that's basically what happened. Is there was a segment of the fandom that really felt that movie was a betrayal of what they thought Star Wars was, and instead of just saying, hey, I didn't like it and here's why, they were like, hey, you evil person, you ruined
but like
it.
what so okay, how about what if the actors of the movie start saying they think it was ruined too? And like I think so. I think there are creative processes that are enough of a gestalt that like everyone can rag on them because they were a failure. But that's like a very unique kind of thing to exist.
I think people place too much of a premium on actors' responses to things. Like an actor's job is to act. Like they're not creating the story. And so people love to point at the actors and say, see, it is bad because the actor says it is.
I didn't mean to hit that nerve, but like say there is a story that is essentially designed by committee because the stakes are so high that there are like 100 voices that must be satisfied to make the thing happen. And I think this is actually what happened with like the Rise of Skywalker, to stick to the Star Wars example here, is that you have something where there's not really any single creator who like failed the fandom. It was just like it was like a perfect storm of a lot of things simultaneously going wrong. And like are you allowed to be upset about that? Like I think so, and maybe feel like a little sad for the state of Star Wars. Like,
yeah, I mean again, like to me there's a line between allowed to be upset and like acting upon that. Like I hated The Rise of Skywalker. I hated that movie. I thought that was a terrible movie, and I was incredibly disappointed in just about every single creative choice in that movie.
I feel like the creators are too. So I think it's like,
sure,
it's okay.
Sure, but then I just carried on with my life, and like I just think like the idea that the expectation is because I didn't like this, you should listen to everything I have to say about it. Like that I think there's a difference between Matt makes a video about how he would do this movie, and I listen to this video and say, hey, that's some good I wish that they had done that, and saying we should start a petition and make them remake the movie with these changes because they're clearly better. I think those are two hugely different things.
I think that I'm going to tie together a couple of threads here. So Daniel just made this point that like one of the reasons why, Rise of Skywalker, for example, was terribly flawed was because it was essentially made by too many cooks in the kitchen. And this is a well-known failure mode of things in general. And so when you have a situation where 10,000 fans feel like they should have a voice in a creative process, you're so much more doomed. Because if you consider every fan to be a stakeholder with like a valid voice in the creative process, like you've just ruined the thing, guaranteed. And so I would say that like, I mean, I think I would have been less likely to make that video if I thought that like, well, okay, that we're not in a world where you can like redo a movie, obviously, but like I don't want J.J. Abrams to watch my video and then be like, oh my God,
he's got it.
Oh my God, this is like I don't want to live in a world where I have to worry that creators are radically revising their content based on the response of the audience in a herky jerk and reactive fashion. Like I think like we talked about, Wildbow keeping his ear to the ground and paying attention. Like, okay, they seem to be processing what I'm trying to do here. Good. Like that's directional, right? But it's not like, oh, okay, I need to radically change what I was doing with the story, which is I think what some people would have had him do, and that just wouldn't work. Like it just would have been a disaster. I think the way I'm going to think about this, I think going forward, I was being quiet for a while, just like listening to you guys and processing. Like I think I'm leaning toward just saying like I want there to be a hermetic divide between fan and creator, because or at least we can all at least I want to pretend that there is, because if we get into a world where the fans know that the creator is reading their complaints, that just introduces this whole new human monkey signaling social hierarchy pathway that I don't think is productive in the creator / audience dichotomy.
Yeah, I mean, I think, and especially like this matters, especially in the type of creation that is serialized and ongoing, right? That like new episodes are coming out every week. The lag time between production and release is very small. Like in Wildbow's case, the lag time between production and release is hours, right? He's writing mere hours before he's released the things. In the Adventure Zone, I think it's like a week in between the recording session and what takes the editing and the release. So this is a very small lag time, and therefore there is more expectation that they are listening to critique, shifting based on critique, changing based on these things. Like in TV, I think it happened to a certain extent, but like for the most part, TV is running like a month or two ahead of schedule mostly, because it takes so long to, especially nowadays with TV has a bunch of special effects which take just forever to do. So they like sometimes, I mean, some shows like they've wrapped the season before they even start releasing it. I think a lot of network TV still is running on like there are a couple episodes ahead thing, but like most of the streaming stuff I think is totally, well, it has to be because they're releasing it all at once. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't know if we solved anything here, but I really was on my mind today because I saw this and I was a bit shocked by the reception to this particular episode and this particular community. And I just didn't know how to process that. And I like talking through these things with you guys.
Yeah. I don't know if we solved anything either, but I feel like I am more productively confused than I was before because it's actually a bit disturbing to like see myself in the sort of person who would rage at Travis McElroy.
Yeah, I mean, Matt, I signed the Warrior Bill of Rights in EverQuest. Like, I'm not going to pretend like I wasn't this person.
Yeah,
but
yeah. I don't know, man. We all got soul searching to do.
It terrifies me to try to create something in real time in the presence of the community. I would always want to completely hermetically create the thing and then release it over time maybe or something, because I feel like the other process is just fraught. And I now have a newfound respect / understanding of how something like the multi-decade Star Wars saga can end up in the state that it's in.
Yeah. I mean, I think maybe this is probably on my mind a lot right now because we are like a mere 7 patrons away from hitting our goal and starting to go into production on our own new original content thing. And so this is on my mind. Like, we're going to be releasing these things in chunks. People are going to be listening to them. People are going to be critiquing them, which again, I think that's fine. Like, if people don't like the thing, I want them to feel free to say they don't like the thing. But like, I'm just thinking a lot about how we are going to engage.
Just don't read Reddit. Don't
yeah.
Remember when George Lucas was a demigod and the most beloved creator of all time?
Yeah, that went away real quick, fast, and then it came back. And then it came back. It's amazing.
Yeah, and that was before the internet. So,
all right, I think that's it. We went on that a little longer than I thought, but that's okay. It was a good conversation. Thank you guys for indulging me on that one.
Of course.
Before we sign off for the week, I just wanted to give everyone a heads up. Next week's episode will be another one of our Council of Doof episodes, which are the episodes where we let a certain member of our patrons vote collectively on a movie that they would like to present to the world to join our canon of wonderful Doof Media films. The Council next week has chosen the film Akira, so I just wanted to make that clear to everyone so everyone has time to go watch Akira. It is currently available on Hulu if you have a Hulu subscription, or I think it's on Funimation as well if you have a subscription to that. It's that anime stuff. It's also for rent in some other places, so if you don't have subscriptions to either of that, you can find it to rent other places. But that's what we're going to be talking about next week, and then everyone will be voting on whether Akira is good enough to enter into our illustrious canon of the most wonderful films. Matt, they found a way to make us do an anime again.
Is this the first Council of Doof anime?
Well, unless
it's
you
not
count
a series.
Yes.
Interesting, fascinating.
I am. I'm much less dreading this because it is just a movie, right?
Yeah.
It's not 20 hours of watching a series that I'm not enjoying. It's just a couple hours. So we'll see. I have seen Akira before, but it was a long time ago, so I don't really remember it that well.
Yeah, they keep finding the loopholes, Scott. We keep trying to keep the anime out, and they keep finding ways to get it in.
It's like hackers versus security experts, right? It's just like every time you patch one thing, they find a new vulnerability to exploit.
Yep, just like that.
All right, folks, that is all we had for you this week. If you have any opinions on Chronicles of Riddick or Richard Riddick in general, you can reach out to us via email at doofmedia@gmail.com or on our Twitter account at doofmedia. And if you have any opinions on the stuff we talked about with critique and criticism and ownership of media, I would be interested to hear what other people think about this. And how you feel about this strange dynamic that is showing up more and more in our lives these days.
Yeah, just don't think that we're going to react in any way to your thoughts on this matter, though. If you're not already subscribed to this podcast, we encourage you to do so and ensure that you never miss an episode. You can find us on iTunes, Stitcher, YouTube, Google Play, and pretty much anywhere else podcasts can be found.
You can find this and all of our shows over at our website, doofmedia.com. That's where you can find the book club, which announcement was supposed to be meeting today, as in the day this episode came out, the 31st of July, but we had to delay it a week, so it will be next Friday, the 7th of August at 9:30 at night, where we're going to be reading the first 15 lives of Harry August and talking about that. So we had to delay that a week, but it will be next week. We are going to announce August's book tomorrow anyway, because we want to allow people to start reading that, but we had to delay the actual book club. But next Friday, come hang out with us and talk about this book on our YouTube account.
Yeah.
And if you like what we do here and want to support us, consider becoming a patron of Doof Media. Head on over to patreon.com/doofmedia and pledge $1 a month or whatever else you can afford. You can pledge at the $20 level, like our patron DDev, and make us watch maybe the third movie in the Riddick series. That's not on our docket yet, Matt. We can watch Riddick and talk about it.
I would love to watch Riddick because I think that's actually just a really good movie.
I do too. Thank you so much, DDev, for supporting us and for making us revisit this movie. Daniel sure enjoyed it.
It's just my childhood.
It was nice to get to revisit it. Yeah, for sure. Thanks for joining us, Daniel.
Yeah, of course. I would happily talk about Chronicles of Riddick for another hour and a half, literally anytime. So.
Maybe that can just be the Freeman Bros this week.
Yeah, just another.
Just more. You have more to talk about.
Always.
You know what would be great? The Freeman Bros Chronicles of Riddick commentary track. Boom, make it happen.
Oh my god, that is a good idea.
That's a good idea.
Okay, all right. Write that down, someone.
All right.
Anyway, please consider rating and reviewing the Doofcast on Apple Podcasts, because every review helps us get more exposure and introduces new people to the content that we make here.
We will see you all next week for another episode of our Council of Doof, where we're talking about the anime Akira. Let's do it. Let's talk about Akira.
My name is Doof, and you'll do what I say. My name is Doof, and you'll do what I say.